Hello, I'm Dave and this is Logan, out once again for a walk in the countryside. Thanks for joining us. Now today we're at a place called Culpeppers Dish in Dorset. I'll tell you a little bit more about the dish shortly. It's located just south of Briantspuddle, which is itself 2.5 miles southwest of Bere, Regis and 8 miles east of Dorchester. And we're going to be walking a roughly 4-mile circular route. We'll check out the Culpeppers Dish. We'll head north along a section of the Hardy Way to the outskirts of Briantspuddle, but then we'll be heading eastwards to Turners Puddle before heading west along the Jubilee Trail to Briantspuddle, and then the final section will involve an exploration around Briantspuddle Heath. Now I'm filming in the middle of July. It looks like it's going to be a glorious sunny day, plenty of blue sky, not too much wind. Should be perfect conditions for walking. Do come along with us. Well, I've parked my car at the Forestry England car park at Culpeppers Dish. You can probably see a beautiful view behind me to the south, but we're initially going to be heading northwards. Okay, well the first thing we'll look at is Culpeppers Dish itself, but before we do, how do you actually spell it? The Forestry Commission car park sign says Culpeppers with one L and no hyphen. The current Ordnance Survey map says Culpeppers with one L and a hyphen. And a 1902 map and a 1958 map call it Culpeppers with two L's and a hyphen. Anyway, it's just across the road in front of me here. Looking down, you can see it's basically a huge sinkhole or swallow hole. Now here the sand and clay has subsided into the underlying chalk. You've got the top layer of gravel and then chalk, and the acidic rainwater dissolves the chalk and then gets into cavities or pipes of softer sand and clay underneath, and I think that's how holes form. Something like that. There's quite a few around here. Indeed, there's a couple just to the east, but this is the biggest. Something like 290 yards around and 47 yards deep. It appears on some fairly old maps, so hopefully nothing's going to collapse soon. And some sources say it's named after Nicholas Culpepper, who's got one L and one P, the famous herbalist of the early 17th century. But I'm not sure what connection he would have had with the area. Of course, Thomas Hardy mentioned Culpeppers Dish in his 1878 novel Return of the Native. Okay, let's kick on with our walk, heading eastwards. Well, I mentioned that there were some other sinkholes in the area, and indeed there's one here in front of me. Not as deep as Culpeppers Dish and not as big, but still pretty impressive nonetheless. We've now joined up with a section of the Hardy Way, an old friend of ours, a 220-mile long-distance path that winds its way through Dorset, connecting places that have got a link with author and poet Thomas Hardy. And it starts at Higher Bockhampton, where he was born, and finishes at Stinsford Churchyard, where his heart is buried. Well, this is a beautiful shaded section of the route. And so we're heading sort of northeast, and this should take us to the outskirts of Briantspuddle. Well, this is the eastern side of Briantspuddle. Now, we will be having a look at the village later on in the walk, but we're actually going to continue heading eastwards towards Throop. We've got a little bit of road work to do, but it shouldn't be too bad. And this is the tiny settlement of Throop. It might be small, but there are some gorgeous houses here. This one on the left, Piper's cottage, with the thatch. I think it's one of those typical thatch long houses. And then there are a couple of white cottages further on. I think one was built, well, has got origins back to the 1600s. And this is Throop House, looking gorgeous in the morning sunshine. I love the roses climbing up the wall there. Oh, I love this one. Well Cottage. And presumably there must have been a well there at some stage. And next to Well Cottage is Owl Box. And I was reading that I think this was once the garage for Well Cottage. I'm not 100% sure about that though. Well, we're continuing to head eastwards towards our next destination, a little place called Turners Puddle, but we're just about to cross over the River Piddle. The River Piddle is 18.5 miles long. It rises to Alton Pancras to the northwest and flows into Poole Harbour at Wareham. It's also known as the Trent. It's had various names over the years. In 966 AD it was actually called Piddlen. The Victorians thought it a bit rude, and I think they actually renamed it the River Puddle. Right, you're going to check it out for dog dip purposes. Oh, he likes that. Nice fresh water. He's going quite deep today. Yep, I think we're up to chest height. That's usually a good sign. It's not too warm a day actually at the moment, but it's always nice to have a refreshing dip. He says, yeah, I'll stay here, Dad, and I'll catch you up shortly. Well, another little bridge to cross over. I'm presuming this just must be a little bit more of the River Piddle. Now we're just about to enter the tiny little hamlet of Turners Puddle. It was recorded in the Domesday Book as Piddle, along with Briantspuddle, I think. A chap called Henry Toner was lord of the manor in around the late 12th century, but by the 19th century Toners became Turners Puddle. The manor eventually passed to the Frampton family. Now, Turners Puddle isn't very big, and I don't think we're going to see too much of it. The main farmhouse, which has got, well, parts of it date to the 16th century, is all behind a wall and some hedging. And in front of me here is the Holy Trinity Church, and most of it dates from the 16th century. It was restored in the 18th century after part of the roof and tower blew off in a storm in 1758. It consists of a nave, a chancel that was partly rebuilt in 1859, a south porch and a west tower. In the 19th century, the parish actually united with Puddle to the west which has a church, and this church actually closed, and it's now redundant. It was deconsecrated in 1974. It had 2 bells. I think it might still have 2 bells. I read that they were originally stolen in the 1950s, but the thieves had second thoughts and returned them. So, well, it looks as though it's closed. There's a sign outside that says it's private. I think it does get used for exhibitions, but I'm not sure who actually owns it these days. Well, shall we see what Sir Frederick Treves had to say about Turners Puddle in his 1906 book, Highways and Byways in Dorset. At Turners, or Toners Puddle, is a small church, simple and pathetically plain, standing by the river's edge at a bend where the stream widens into a rush-bordered pool. By the side of the childlike church is a farmhouse, as unpretentious and as rustic. The houses of the hamlet have shrunk away from these two, as if in respect for their venerable companionship. Well, it's not bad for Treves. I think he liked it. Well, a little update on the route. Having left Turners Puddle, we're now heading westwards, back towards Briantspuddle. And as we do so, well, there's some quite gorgeous countryside views either side of this track that we're on. And this very much is your sort of quintessential Dorset landscape scene. In the middle of the summer, the crops really coming on now, enjoying the sunshine. And you've got such a variety here. You've got a cluster of conifers over in the far distance, and some beautiful deciduous trees just here on the right. Well, that's what I call an old finger post, but it does tell us that we're on the Jubilee Trail, which is that 90-mile long distance path that goes from Ford Abbey in Somerset all the way to Bockley Dyke on the Hampshire-Dorset border. It was established in 1995 to celebrate the Ramblers Association Diamond Jubilee. A lovely day to be out riding. Yeah, a lovely horse. And you. Well, we're now heading south, still on the Jubilee Trail, crossing the River Piddle once more. I say the water is crystal clear, almost has that chalk streamy feel to it. And there is our next destination ahead, the village of Briantspuddle. And this is the delightful village of Briantspuddle. And it's got a fascinating history. It's the larger of the two villages in the parish of Puddle, the other village is Puddle to the west. And it was known, like Turners Puddle, as Piddle in the 11th century. And in the 13th century, it was recorded as Priest Piddle. The Bryant bit came from Brian de Turberville, who was lord of the manor in the 14th century. In 1683, Puddle, Briantspuddle and Turners Puddle were united in ownership under the Frampton family. They then sold out to the Debenhams family in the early 20th century. Now, Sir Frederick Treves said, and I quote, "It is now only a very rudimentary, very pretty hamlet, which may certainly claim to be situated in what city folk call the real country. Now, Treves wrote that well before there are quite a few changes, as I'll explain. In the period between the two world wars, Sir Ernest Debenham started to build a model farm here, centred on Briantspuddle. Basically, it was an agricultural experiment to prove that the country could be solely responsible for feeding itself. He set up a sort of intensive pig, poultry and dairy farming enterprise that was self-sufficient. Originally, the village was made up of a few farms and 12 cottages, but Sir Ernest made a lot of changes, including upgrading the main farm and building houses for the estate workers. I think by 1929, about 40 new cottages had been built. Unfortunately, the experiment failed, not helped with the slump in the late 1920s, and funds that were used to subsidise the enterprise ran out. The building of new houses stopped in 1929 and the number of people employed on the farms reduced. The operation declined, and by 1932 the farms started to be rented out. But in a way, Sir Ernest was a bit unlucky, as he was way ahead of his time with some of his ideas. I mean, the first silage tower to be built in the UK was here in the village. Following his death in 1952, the estate was broken up and sold. Now, this little close here is called the Ring. It was once the dairy production facility for Sir Ernest's enterprise, built after the First World War, and it's now private homes. Oh, look at this. This is Cruck Cottage opposite the Ring, and it's possibly the oldest house in the village. It originates from the 15th century. And this little area here is the modern Ring, with modern bungalows designed to mimic the original Ring further to the east. And this delightful building here, the old granary. It's actually now a community shop run by volunteers, established in 2002 after the old shop in the village closed down. And this is the village hall. Apparently it's one of only 2 thatched village halls in Dorset. In the 17th century it was the tithe barn for Briantspuddle Farm, and that occupied the site here. It was rebuilt in 1803, but in the 1920s it was converted into the village hall. Well, this is an interesting little road junction here, because, well, if you look at a 1902 map, the road ahead didn't exist. It was just a footpath. I guess it was made, well, the road was built as a straight road through it to improve access. It was a bit windy down to the right. Well, what have we got here by the side of the road? Dead woman's stone, believed to mark a medieval suicide grave near Clouds Hill, and then brought here. I'll put a photograph of the plaque up on screen so you can read it. Well, I'm just going to do a little detour along this straight road just to the western edge of the village. And I think this building here was the old school. Oh yes, it's called the old school. The clues are there, with a date of 1870 outside. Well, this is as far west as I'm going to go. At the end of the village there's the War Memorial, and there's a little gravel track down here, and there's something like 20 houses here that were built for estate workers by Sir Ernest Debenham. I think it's called Bladen Valley. Oh wow, what a lovely sight. A polo mint, oh, I'm fresh out of those. Beautiful. Okay, well, we're now going to start heading southwards, and well, this building here I think used to be the old shop. There's a red phone box opposite, indeed there's a post box outside, but it closed as a shop in 1997 after trading here for 50 years. This is an important part of the route, coming out of the village to the south. We need to take this footpath to Culpeppers Dish. And looks like we're still on the Jubilee Trail. Well, this is a gorgeous section of the walk. A quite idyllic bit of woodland, lovely and shady on a warm day. Logan very much on squirrel alert, keeping them in order. Our little pit stop just to take in the views. We're very much, well, I'd say it's almost heathland now. A lot of conifers, quite a sort of sandy soil on top. So peaceful as well. Well, we're nearly at the end of the walk now. I've done a little detour south from Culpeppers Dish to check out a lovely bit of heathland. It's called Briantspuddle Heath, spelt slightly differently to the way the village name is spelt. And the reason that I've done the detour is to check out this little pond that's in front of me here. And it's called Rimsmore Pond, and it's mentioned in Thomas Hardy's Return of the Native, published in 1878. And it's a lowland heath pool, and it's haunted. A lone figure on horseback apparently is often seen moving towards the pond, and then he vanishes. And the story is of a local man that's thought to have drowned here, and his body was never found. Ooh, I think we need to make our way back to the car pretty sharpish. Well folks, we've come to the end of our walk. We thought we'd do the end scene at the little shop in Briantspuddle, where we can share some ice cream. We hope you enjoyed the walk today. If you did, please do give us a thumbs up and a like, and do leave a comment, and do check out our Facebook page, Dave's Countryside Walks. Oh, and a big hello to Paul that I've just met. He's a regular viewer, and he's now the proud owner of a Dave's Countryside Walks badge. So until we meet again, thanks for watching, and cheerio. Right, sir? 1 lick. All right, 2 licks. 3 licks. 4 licks. 5 licks.